Morning. Welcome to the 10 a.m. business meeting. I know employee labor, Jessica is out. I see Kathy on budget. You just got to sit down and now we're making a move. Yeah.
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. I was out most of last week, but I worked online at home. And I was working on budget and trying to assist areas that have questions. Today is the due date for the budget boss submissions. And then there's also on our portal, there are budget forms for those that need to request a position or technology, things of that nature. And so those are out there on the portal. And so they have until the end of today. And if there's anyone that needs some help or extension, they just need to let me know. So, and my goal is for the next 2 weeks to look at all the submissions and to analyze everything and to make sure we're in good standing. So I can produce a preliminary budget for the county by the required due date, which is in September. Mm-hmm. And then on risk management.
Wait, before that,
Yes.
are there any things that you want to offer categorically to the people that submit? Because we've done things one way and you're trying to actually move us forward.
Yes. Well, most of the forms are the traditional forms they've seen before. And Budget Boss, there isn't any major enhancements done to it yet. I hope to have some enhancements done for the next budget time that we go around and work with IT to help us improve some things. But there just wasn't enough time to get any of that put in place this time. So pretty much everything is similar to what they've done before in the past, as far as budget submission items, forms, timelines.
Okay, so the current status of Budget Boss is such that it does pretty much what you need, but it's not full support for how you think things should be done.
Yeah. And then there's a few things this year that that we're having a little bit of difficulty with. For example, it's I don't know, it's just been unique. In that 2025, it's supposed to have no ability to do data entry at the department's level on labor and benefits, but it's open, wide open right now. So I don't know why. So those are things that we're going to look to fix for the next cycle.
You've also been concerned, and so was Tracy before, of lots of slots holding positions open. So do you have a guideline for the departments?
No, I haven't developed anything yet, but there are quite a few positions that are still vacant, that have been vacant. In some cases, I've noticed there's positions that are vacant since they were created. They've never had a person in them.
And you'd like to clean that up?
Yes, yeah.
I think there's some positions that are very high level, very hard to find, and you might understand
Yes.
we're looking for a jewel, but for a lot of the other stuff, if you went for 6 months without it, maybe it's not valid.
Yeah, I don't know. But there is quite a few positions that are like that. And then in the case of, for example, Superior Court asked me to look at their positions. And when I did my research, I went back to 21 and they actually have a position that was approved, but wasn't in the budget and wasn't funded. So, you know, those things are happening too, where I'm going back and I'm trying to recreate what should have happened. And, you know, there's, you know, from turnover, there's too many people that can touch this salary database that we
Mhm.
have. And so I know that Tracy had some issues with some data entry that was done wrong and formulas that weren't correct in there before that they went through and corrected. But there's just some, I mean, I can't explain what happened on that one, the Superior
Yeah.
Court one.
You know, I'm wondering and see what my colleagues think. After you get through this budget cycle and you get a sense of things that are not working like they should or whatnot, should we maybe have a workshop and just kind of see how we fix and
Yeah,
repair some of this stuff?
Yeah, on the salary database, really, if we have the ability to use PeopleSoft at a more elevated level to produce this database for us, would be my goal. But I understand that several people have looked at it before and couldn't get PeopleSoft to do what we need it to do. So I'd like to take another stab at that, looking at it, because I'm used to having a position. Basically it's what's called a position management system, and you manage vacant as well as active positions. That's what this does. And then it's linked to be able to fully load your positions for benefits, things like that. But anyway, we need to relook at it because it's very labor intensive to do what we're doing. We did try to automate a couple of things like with that chat GBT or whatever, but it was very minor what we did. So we need to look at a better way.
Yeah, I wouldn't also preclude the position management system. Our system should always have import and export capabilities.
Mhm.
And so if a tool is tailored to what we need, maybe we buy it, but it's got to export.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, this one
can
doesn't.
make that work.
That's what the problem is with this one. It doesn't import anything from PeopleSoft. We're actually manually putting it in.
But
That's very inefficient.
if you had a PMS, you could presumably,
Right,
Okay.
right.
there's in your machinations, I know you come across scenarios. How easy is it for you to present us? Well, under scenario A, you've got this. Under scenario B, you've got this. And when I'm thinking about scenarios, we're under pressure from Superior Court to say we need a sixth judge. And that is something you just don't add on and just say, oh, well.
And I think there's a request currently in our budget forms right now that's being submitted for that as well. And I noticed in some historical information, I think it had been presented maybe once before in the 23 or 22 cycle. I don't know.
For
For
a
an
sixth judge?
additional. Mhm.
Do you remember that, Dennis?
I don't remember
Specifically?
them adding anything for a sixth judge.
Okay.
We've been talking about it going forward, and
And maybe that's what I had seen.
the state has been publishing data that the caseload warrants another one, but
It
that
was-
has to be approved by the legislature, so it wouldn't be for next year. It would be
I
maybe
think
later.
it was recently approved by the governor's office or the AG.
Not
or
the sixth
the
one.
legislature.
That hasn't gone through. The fifth one was hanging for about 10 years.
Right.
As approved, we just didn't fund it until about 3 years ago. Was it 4?
Well, in any event,
Yeah.
my recollection is it has been, but maybe it's pending us saying we would support it.
I think
And
that's
that would
that
sway
may
the
be where it's at.
legislature.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyhow, it's still the kind of thing where,
Yeah, the system we currently have, it's not really set up very well to do scenario. Like, for example, it's not set up for a scenario of calculating a COLA on certain positions.
yeah.
I think it could be done with some macro written based upon collect whatever. Anyway, but it doesn't really have any scenario ability built into it either. And so that's lacking.
Okay.
It surprises me. I thought PeopleSoft could do anything if you bought the right modules. And I'm wondering if that's what the problem is.
Yeah. I
If
don't
we're still
know.
trying to use an old system that doesn't fit micro or.
No,
PeopleSoft.
PeopleSoft is built, I think, on Oracle, isn't it? And Oracle has more flexibility than anybody will ever use. In fact, if you wanted to be a database administrator for Oracle, you almost have to have a master's degree with all the capabilities that it has. But that translates into you've got to get the right knowledgeable person in, and you've got to keep that person because you've got maintenance on it. And Oracle and PeopleSoft get upgrades. You've got to have somebody that, and so forth. The design of that thing is pretty significant. That's why I would typically favor the modular approach. Use this in its simple state so you don't have to pay the expert. And then, okay, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a relational database. It's
Yeah.
very complex.
And they should be able to put out for the question you asked about scenario A and B, you ought to be able to just say, duplicate this and then play with that and then say, okay, save it, duplicate that. And you should be able to present this a dozen scenarios.
Yeah. And I can't do that easily with the system we have right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Appears to me we'd be open to, after you get through the process of the workshop, and just kind of
Yeah.
define this. I think it's important that we be as efficient as we can and as transparent. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you say efficient, the one part, of course, is just that it takes fewer keystrokes, let's say, but you want it such that it supports the what if experiments and there's no error in importing the data.
Right.
One of the things that shocks me here is when people re-enter data by hand, they get a piece of paper from some department and they're entering it by hand. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. I've swapped numbers a time or two myself, yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So anyway, so the budget is ongoing work, and we'll get through it. And being without a budget analyst to help me, it's kind of a nightmare right now. So I'm doing the best I can. I have some temp help, and that's a little bit of relief. But anyway, so
I think there's some issues here I'd like to discuss. Probably needs to be executive session performance of a public employee. Always the sooner the better.
Do you want to put it on today, or is that what you're asking?
Today, if we have the time, yeah.
Okay, sure.
And I'd like your attendance on that one.
oh, okay.
Thank you.
Right. And then putting on my risk management hat, we had a quarterly report that was due, and I got that filled out and finished last week. And so it was sent off over the weekend. And so I'm trying to stay caught up on all the risk management items as well. And I'm scheduled to have a workshop on risk management, the risk pool with you, I think on the 23rd, if I remember correctly. So I'll be ready for that.
Okay.
That's all. I'm just trying to catch up with everything.
Well,
Good to have you back.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back.
And,
I was very tired of staying in my bedroom, isolated.
yeah. Gets old fast, doesn't it?
Very old.
Yeah.
Did-
Well,
I'm not sure I can ask that. I'll ask it. You don't have to answer. Was that the big C that you had?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I took a trip to go. I blame my friends that they must have brought it and gave it to me, brought it from Texas and gave it to me. But then I traced my steps back, and I think I I got it being on a crowded train on Wednesday, on the Wednesday I went to meet them, so. So they didn't bring it to me. They didn't bring me a Texas
We can't blame it on
present. I
Texas.
can't,
Yeah.
I can't blame it on Texas, so, oh darn.
You took care of it yourself. You didn't go and have it looked at to decide whether it's version X.
No, I didn't.
There's a new one on, and I think I've sent to HHS an article on a few things like that. Yeah,
No, I did go.
it'll be with us forever.
Well,
I did
that's-
go, I did go seek medical treatment and they gave me a prescription to help me get, I guess, better sooner, but they didn't perform a test. I just did my home test.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Corrections.
There it is.
There
Good
you go.
morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. Our population this morning was 235 with 49 bookings over the weekend. So it was a pretty busy weekend for us. We did have a washer down since Thursday, but luckily maintenance got that fixed this morning. That's well, not a washer, the washer. So not having a working washing machine while caring for 235 people is less than ideal, but it's working for the moment.
You don't need the air freshener?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I haven't gone inside the jail yet today, but I'm sure it's a little funkier than normal.
Didn't we replace the washing machine over there about 3 years ago, 2 years?
That sounds possible. We did both of the dryers right at the very end of 19. Yeah, that sounds,
So this was one of them?
we have one washer and 2 dryers.
Okay.
One of our dryers we're having issues with, but we had one functioning, but yeah, we only have one washing machine. So we were taking things over to juvenile or
And the warranty was up last month.
probably, right?
And that's a commercial washer?
Yes.
How is that used in operations? That is to say, who gets access and what materials go in?
We have inmate workers that are assigned to laundry. So we
And you take care of the bed sheets and the jumpsuits and all of that?
don't have sheets anymore, but blankets, so we exchange the linens and greens with the inmates once a week. So they get new uniforms, and we don't typically wash their personal belongings unless they're really terrible.
Enough.
Yeah. But when they're in custody, they have the opportunity to wash personal clothes, their undergarments.
How do they do their own stuff?
We have mesh bags assigned to cells, numbers on them.
Oh,
And then we send them
they-
into the wash and then bring them back and hand them back out.
Pursuing the same line of question, in 3 years doesn't seem, well, I imagine that machine is used 12 hours a day, probably on average.
We have night shift laundry and day shift laundry, so it's used. Yep. It gets a lot of use. I'm not sure. It sounded like it was maybe a somewhat easy fix this morning. I haven't had a chance to talk to Will yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
We're back up and running. And they've got some piles of laundry to do that have gathered over the weekend.
With the turnover and maintenance, they may not be aware that it's a relatively new piece of equipment. They
That's
should figure
possible.
it out, but
I'll have to look it up. I'm not. sure
Well,
when purchased
there's
it.
that, and I'm always suspicious of inmate games.
Right. They don't have access. It's fenced in,
Yeah,
so they don't have access to the.
I don't
like,
trust anybody.
the back of the machines or any of that. It's behind, it's secured.
I watch TV. I know
I
what
know.
happens in the secure areas.
They are occasionally up to no good. You are correct. I did look at some booking numbers after our discussion last week, just to compare January to June of 22 to 23. And I know we specifically talked about shoplifting in our world. That's the third. So in 2022, for the first 6 months, we had 342 people arrested or booked with that charge. And this year, we're at 649 for the same time period.
Wow.
So they are booking people. And
That's for shoplifting.
just shoplifting. That could be warrants as well. So there wouldn't be a differentiation. That many inmates were charged with that crime.
When you say a warrant, that could be a shoplifter of 22 that did something on parole and ended up getting pulled back in.
Right. So if they are released on any charge and it has not been fully adjudicated, maybe they didn't go to court. That's most typically what it is. They're not showing for their court appearances. So then there will be a warrant out for their arrest. So that,
Those are unique.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
could line up 649 people.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
right. Well, I mean, one person could be booked for it 6 times.
Oh, but so then it's not
Unique to
649.
charge, not unique to an individual.
Unique to charge,
Yeah.
okay.
And unlawful camping, there were only 3 people booked for that in the first 6 months of last year. And this year, we had 66 so far. So that's
That's for what category? sorry?
unlawful camping.
Oh,
And shopping cart violations, the illegal possession of a shopping cart, we had 0 last year and we have had 47 so far this year. So law enforcement is picking up some of those nuisance crimes. The community certainly sees the impact of.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to go fully through the report. I'll put together some numbers on paper to give you.
is it possible to get unique individuals out of that 649?
I'll have to look. That's a report
It's a bit of a nuisance, I know,
right. I'll see
But-
how easy it is to run that.
but I think that it seems in our society now, a small percentage of people drain most of the resources.
That's true. That's all I have for today, unless you have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
IT.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Hort, IT Director. I just wanted to give a couple of updates. I was out last week, so this is just me catching up from this morning. We are still having server room cooling issues, but we are working with facilities to get a finalized plan and strategy. The unit itself has failed and therefore it will need to be replaced. And they're coming up with some options for us to choose from in regards to that. We have the 2 positions that we had open for a while in IT have been filled. We're doing the paperwork and onboarding for those employees. And then we're doing offboarding for our summer help employee that is leaving this Wednesday. There are department contracts with like the jail and the auditor and IT that we are working on. So those will be on the agenda soon for consent or approval. And then we have our phone project. The timeline is still October of 2023 and our current system licensing runs through that. So we are good to run those systems in tandem. We have received servers and we are racking those this morning and have basic configurations on them that will be tailored to our system. And then we have done our final department inventory order for equipment, like phones and headsets.
Weren't the servers kind of the delay? Do I remember that right? So.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they estimated that they would be here mid-August and it's mid-August, so. But we were able to get our legacy system and the licensing in tandem, so everything is squared away for both systems. Before I went on vacation, I met with legal in regards to the retention policy. They are still reviewing the edits proposed from Commissioner Mortensen. And they also advised that IT work with the elected officials throughout the county to ensure that we have their buy-in on the policy. And then this Wednesday, we have a work session scheduled with you guys. And since it involves cybersecurity, it will be an executive session. And that will address matters such as our strategy for retention and our Microsoft licensing and Barracuda.
Okay.
Any questions or concerns?
No. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Miscellaneous. Before we do the executive session, can I just ask about, because I had a call on my machine and I think it came out right before I took off on animal control. Sheriff Thurman was wondering if we've had any discussion on that. I don't know if you guys have talked on what we want to do.
You know the issue,
Yeah,
Humane Societies
yeah, not going to do the control part anymore
after the end of the year.
after the,
My assumption is the default responsibility lies with the sheriff's department.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And we would probably expect to have to add a specific animal control officer. I don't think that's a bad thing, but
yeah. Yeah,
So you might want to reach out to the sheriff and just let him know we're patiently waiting for his recommendation.
okay, that's kind of what the call sounded like,
Okay.
is that he was wanting to know what we were thinking, so I just wanted to bring it up, see if you've had any discussion, but it sounds like that's,
I do know that the day of the ribbon cutting at 911, the talking out in the parking lot afterwards between the police chiefs and the sheriff were specifically on that. So I know they've been visiting.
so specific, very specific to your question, I have had no discussions.
Correct.
so my reaching out to Sheriff Thurman and just say, we're kind of looking for a plan from you and bring it to us and take a look.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll do that. Anything else miscellaneous you want to do before we do that?
how are we doing on time? I guess the other one is we could have at the second meeting, because that's probably something where Mike Moss could partake. So I'd like another executive
In
session.
the 11 o'clock meeting?
Yeah, at the 11
Okay,
o'clock. meeting.
Okay. So we'll go to, and this one was on,
Performance of a public
Employee.
employee.
so, and any time frame,
Let's start with 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
So we go into executive session, performance of employee for 20 minutes. Okay, we're back from an executive session. No decisions were made. Any other miscellaneous for this 10 o'clock meeting? See none, we will,
Do we want to broach any, how much time do we have? 9 minutes. Do we want to use that up or have a break? Because I think the mental health tax stuff is still something that's on my mind about some high level thoughts that have come to my mind on that. Maybe to Dennis, we won't conclude anything. I'm just throwing out.
yeah,
We also have another topic, which is the request on hand for a 6th judge.
you just looking for thoughts on these two things?
I would, we've got to start talking about them, and this
Yeah.
is the only place we can really talk about them.
Well, I'll just throw a thought and I'll preface it by saying I'm not married to all this, if we're just throwing out ideas here.
Yeah,
On the mental health tax, if we have funds to keep status quo, I would like to see that go away. I not opposed to it coming back, but I'd like to really see it. If it came back to be something tangible, that we had a facility for mental health, or we had something that we could show people that this is what their money's going for. We actually have a place for these people now, those type of things, instead of just salaries.
yeah. In keeping with that, some of my thoughts are, we spend some of those dollars on programs, and some of those programs, I don't think we should continue in the manner that they're continued. And I can go into that one. The other one is we can, instead of a step function off, we can at 0.1% down to 0 to 0.05%. So whenever I think of policies with the public, step functions are things I'm always very careful of. So a full step is not as hard to take as a half step. Now I realize that we've got the cash available from the mental health tax, but that can go away rather quickly. And so I'm going to be more conservative than ever. I agree with your sentiment on that. The other one is I will not under any circumstance support something that doesn't have a sunset clause on it. So I'm thinking, for example, maybe you'd be interested in a 0.05 with a 1-year sunset clause on it.
Yeah.
Something as a
I just,
tapering.
and I'm open to any of that. I just think that it's been in place since 2012, and I think times have changed, and we really need to relook at that. You just can't send people to Western State or Eastern like you used to, and it almost feels like you need some kind of outlet in your communities.
Right. One of the reasons to have this discussion now is exactly what you just said. So we have a chunk of money. Is there a way we can use it? And that might be it.
Well, you know, we had discussed earlier this year, at least, the idea or the concept that all those unused beds at juvie could be converted into an adult facility.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be strict segregation. You can't mix those populations at all. But that reserve is something one-time only type improvement to make beds available for folks who need to be isolated. But we haven't talked about that recently, so.
Right. So that's.
I don't know if there's anybody on staff that's championed it, or whether it's up to us to.
I don't know. Agreed. And that may be something where we have to contract out. I'm thinking we haven't yet begun to experience what AOT will do for us.
Yeah.
AOT is the softer version of ITA, Involuntary Treatment Act, where you don't have to get locked up essentially, but you do have checking and so forth. In the absence of better definition, if you said I would prefer not to reinstate the tax, I'll support that. It's very easy to reinstate it afterwards.
Yeah. I kind of along the lines of Commissioner Weber, I just don't think we can depend on the state to take care of some of these patients anymore. And so, and I don't, unless somebody else reads the tea leaves different, I don't see that changing in the future. And I think Cowlitz County will have to step up and start taking care of some of these. So if I'm going to ask money from the people, I want them to see something tangible that we're actually here trying to help. And so if we can make something like that work, I'm much more open to that than just salary dollars going out every year.
Right. And that will force us to go through in detail. Like I'll throw the hand grenade out. I've been thinking about the behavioral health courts and expenses. It'll be somewhat of a discussion, but it'll be like 2/3 go to drug court and 1/3 go to mental health court. I am thinking along these lines, and sure my phone will be ringing off the hook, of suggesting we do not do drug court anymore. There are some issues there And I can discuss them, may not be popular, but I think I can discuss them enough that I'm thinking, yeah, that is a reasonable statement. And behavioral health court, I just don't know enough. What do you do with people that don't want to be part of society or have some stuff? That would save a lot of money. And then I'm looking at the clock. We've got the sheriff's stuff. We authorized 4 people to go with the sheriff's department. And the idea was that was to help the deputies. But from testimony from 2 of the people in the that were employed as a consequence of that, it's just another welfare system. Frankly, I feel betrayed is too strong a word because there was never that personal something or other, but I feel they never really understood. I really care about the sheriff deputies and that if they need help, I'm happy to find them help, but I don't not want to create another welfare system out of that.
Yeah.
So I would cut them from 4 down to 1 right there. So I've just labeled a lot of savings.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly more discussion to come. I think if people ask the 3 of us, do we think we should look at and maybe utilize that better? They probably get nodding heads, yes. Now, how we each view that better part is certainly open for discussion, but
Right.
good to have. Yeah,
Yeah, I know these are tough topics, but that's why we get that.
that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
We have
And then
10?
don't forget, we're going to have an executive session here after this meeting or at the end of this meeting.
At the end of the 11 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. In fact, I think we have more than one because Mike has some stuff too.
Oh, good. He's the one with.
Yeah. So anything else for our 10 o'clock? We'll adjourn that one. Okay, we'll adjourn